Welcome to the Lead Every Day show. Our mission is to see a world well led. And our strategy to get there? To empower leaders like you to lead every day. So let's get to work.
Welcome to the Lead Every Day show. I'm Randy Gravitt.
And I'm Mark Miller.
It's going to be a great one today as we talk about this idea of focus. So I got a guy that I know who his daughter picked up archery. She was going into high school, and where he's from, they have high school archery for girls. I didn't know that. I'm a girl dad. We probably would have been involved with that. I don't think they had. Maybe they did. I didn't know about it.
You
We're
missed
playing
it.
soccer. And
you
running
missed the
cross country.
memo.
I missed the memo. But his daughter signs up for archery, and he told me he goes to this first contest they have, and they got these big, targets. I'm thinking the plastic over the hay bale, with you've seen the rings if you're shooting archery. And he said it was crazy. He said when he didn't know anything about it, but he said when they started shooting, if you hit the outside ring, you get some points for that. I didn't know how to keep score, but he said if you hit the ring inside that, you get more points. And he said if you hit the one in the middle, you get a whole lot of points. He didn't know what he was talking about either, but he went and was supporting his daughter. And that bullseye became the force multiplier of the archer, I think it's the force multiplier of the leader as well when we get focused, especially when we're creating a plan like we've been talking about doing. If you're going to have your best year ever, part of that is going to be, can you get strategic? Can you have strategic focus?
Yeah, because you still get points if you hit the edges.
You get points on the edges.
But you don't get near as many points.
But that bullseye becomes the place. So this is going to be cool.
Yeah. Well, here's some counsel I've given leaders for a long, long time. Be careful not to try and do too much. Because there's some men and women that I have known and probably know some today who are sold out to personal growth, lifelong learning, and yet they're frustrated and they don't get a lot of traction and they don't actually grow a lot.
Don't feel like they get a lot better, yeah.
They're not getting much better because they try to do so much. And so I bring this same encouragement. Could you narrow your focus for your development? And there are two things I'd ask folks to consider. First is, do you have any critical gaps? We told a story a couple of episodes back about the young man who was a consultant and he wanted to learn Spanish, but he was having trouble consulting, which was his core responsibility. So we built a plan to help him improve his consulting. So I think you and we need to figure out, do we have any critical gaps? And if we don't know, then there are people around us who can help us figure out if we've got critical gaps. A lot of our listeners, they can get feedback from their peers, their supervisor, and others about critical gaps.
You can make me a list after the show for me. I'll work on that. That's good.
Some of the same stuff we've been talking about. Keep working on it.
So, and so one of the other things, we start there with the gaps, but we have these other places where we have opportunities. And I know years ago, you actually had a chance. I'm jealous. You had a chance to spend an afternoon with John Wooden, the legendary coach, out at his home. And you learned some things from him that day. But one of the things he did, he talks about this. So tell a little bit of his story.
Yeah, well, for those that don't know that name, ESPN said he was the greatest coach of any sport in the history of the world.
Yeah.
They won 10 national championships in 12 years at UCLA.
And NCAA basketball. Men's basketball.
And that's when the players could only play 3 years because they couldn't play as freshmen.
Yeah.
So you imagine that kind of run. It's crazy. And this whole idea of narrowing your focus on your development plan, the coach would spend an entire off season every year studying one facet of the game. So what is that? 6 months? They'd study rebounding. He would study rebounding. Another year he would study passing. Another year he would study dribbling, and which is fascinating to me. He would talk to the players, interview the coaches, watch all the film, read all the books that were available, and then he said the last step, he would then update his practice notes to reflect what he had learned.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Because he wanted to take all those best practices for that facet of the game and transfer them to his team.
Yeah.
It worked pretty good for him.
Yeah, in a little side road here, I'm thinking, here's the greatest coach ever, and he's still trying to learn and master these small little snippets of the game.
Which may be why he's
the greatest
coach ever.
Yeah, it's pretty cool when you think about it. That's amazing. And it goes really back to what we were talking about yesterday for anybody's listening, this idea of assessing and adjusting. That's what he was doing. He was doing exactly what we talked about in the off season. between, and those teams will just come back better year after year. And imagine trying to compete against somebody like, and the same thing, if you and your leadership are working to close those critical gaps and
then leverage your strengths and learn new things.
Yeah, so let's talk about leveraging our strengths there for a second.
Well, I think most of us have the greatest opportunity for impact in an area of strength. Because when we start working on something we're not good at, we can probably get better. But people who are just mediocre in a particular discipline or skill set aren't the ones that change the world. You need to figure out what you're good at. And again, assuming no critical gaps, how can you double down there?
Yeah, in those areas of strength, I mean, you're going to be more passionate to practice in those areas where you love it anyway.
And you'll see a greater return.
Yeah, you've got energy in those areas. You've got encouragement from others around you. There's effectiveness there, all that stuff. It's a huge opportunity there for us. So this idea of focus is important. And when I think about this, this idea of focus and go back to our bullseye, it reminds me there's an old if you're a Bible reader, I know you and I both like to read the Bible. There's an old word in the Bible, or I say an old word. There's a word in the Bible, the word sin. It comes from a Greek word, which I think the word is hamartia. It's H-A-M-A-T. I can't spell it, but I know the word. But here's what it means. It means to miss the mark. It's actually an archery word. And it makes sense if you think about sin in the Bible. It's like we didn't do what we're supposed to, or we did something we weren't supposed to. I think sometimes it's leadership sin to not have a plan, to not have we don't even have a target that we're shooting at. And I think if we really want to get specific in these areas of opportunity, a place of strength, or maybe a critical gap that's holding us back right now, it's just going to affect the people around you if you don't get better, if you don't close that. So this idea of focus is pretty powerful. And I want to challenge every single person who's listening to lock in on an area, maybe even an opportunity area. It's like it's something you're interested in.
Well, I was going to say that's really the third category.
Yeah.
So if the first is close critical gaps and second is to leverage or double down on your strengths, the third category is to consider a new skill or a new opportunity or a new competency that will help you prepare for the future.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to talk about AI right now. We need to probably be learning about AI.
That's right.
That'd be new for most of us.
Yeah.
It's, it may not be a critical gap today, but in a year or 2 or 5, that's going to be a critical gap if you don't have that. But right now, it might just be an opportunity for growth.
Yeah, and even topics that you're interested in or people you're in. I mean, I remember a few years ago, I had a year that I was trying to learn more about Lincoln, Abraham Lincoln. I spent a whole year reading some of his books and some of his writings and what other people had written about him. And so AI is an opportunity in the future, Lincoln in the past. I mean, you can pick all kind of places, but if you get focused on your learning, who knows, you might even be the leader. Like John Wooden was a coach, you might be the best leader that you can be if you focus on that. And I can tell you that you will never regret becoming strategic about your growth. Sporadic, you'll get some points for that. If you read a book or your boss gives you a quote or your wife reminds you of something, your husband says something, you do get some points, but you get bullseye points when you get really focused and you hit that target. It can become so powerful. All right, we're gonna continue the conversation. We're actually going to jump into the actual plan tomorrow. We're going to begin to craft that, and I can't wait to share some of that with you. I hope you'll join us as we continue to work on this idea of having our best year ever. There's some things that we can do. It's a choice that we make. If you will continue to focus your life, your impact is going to go to the next level this next year. Remember, the best leaders lead every day.